What's happening, everybody? Tyrone Bowman live. Welcome to the program. This is news headlines. There's a lot going on in the country and around the world. So I'm going to get started. I'm bringing some stories from various news agencies in and from other parts of the world as well. So let's find out what's going on and what's happening. For those of you who have subscribed to the channel, thank you for subscribing to Tyrone Bowman Live. I really appreciate it. Your subscription is always welcomed. And if you desire to support the channel, simply go to my Cash App at $PIEXCL number 4. That's $PIEXCL number 4. Well, let's get started with this. According to Reuters news agency, the headline reads, Trump sharing leaked texts and AI mock-ups vows, quote, no going back on Greenland. So here's the summary. Trump's Greenland ambition threatens NATO unity and trade ties. NATO is short for the National Atlantic Treaty Organization. Macron demands respect, not bullies. EU Commission chief calls for new independent Europe. Russia questions Danish sovereignty over Greenland. And Wall Street slides as Greenland standoff knocks settlement. U.S. President Donald Trump said on Tuesday there was no going back on his goal to control Greenland, refusing to rule out taking the Arctic island by force and rounding on allies as European leaders struggle to respond. Trump's ambition spelled out in social media posts and mock-up AI images to wrest sovereignty over Greenland from fellow NATO member Denmark has threatened to blow apart the alliance that has underpinned Western security for decades. It has also threatened to reignite a trade war with Europe that rattled markets and companies for months last year. Trump's Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent pushed back against what he called hysteria over Greenland. As I expressed to everyone very plainly, Greenland is imperative for national and world security. There can be no going back on that. Everyone agrees, Trump has said after speaking to NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte. To drive home the message, Trump posted an AI image of himself in Greenland holding a U.S. flag. Another showed him speaking to leaders next to a map showing Canada and Greenland as part of the United States. Well, we already know that Canada is part of the Commonwealth of the United Kingdom. So there's no way that Canada is going to become a part of America's territory. So we know that's not going to happen. As for Greenland, that might be a different story. It may be a strong possibility that it may take place. Separately, Trump leaked messages, including from French President Emmanuel Macron, who questioned what Trump was doing on Greenland. Trump, who has vowed to impose tariffs on countries that stood in his way, had earlier threatened to hammer French wines and champagnes with a 200% tariff. So what does that sound like to you all, ladies and gentlemen? What's going on here? Quote, as I expressed to everyone very plainly, Greenland is imperative for national and world security. There can be no going back. That's story number one. And here's a story that kind of ties in with the Greenland. According to CBC, U.S. equities and suffering big losses Tuesday after President Donald Trump intensified his rhetoric on Greenland, threatening to impose new tariffs on countries opposing the sale of the Danish territory to the United States. U.S. Treasury yields spiked and the U.S. dollar declined. Trump's threat caused a flight from U.S. assets. Danish pension operator Kada Milken Pension said Tuesday that it is exiting U.S. treasuries because of finance concerns over U.S. debt. The Dow Jones Industrial Average shed 870 .74 points, or 1.76% to end the session at 48,488,059. I hope I read that right. The S&P 500 dipped 2.06% to settle at 6,796.86. The NASDAQ composite slid 2.39%, closing at 22,954.32. I guess that's shares. It was the worst session since October for all three major averages. The day's losses sent the A&P 500 and NASDAQ lower on the year, with the former dropping nearly 1% and NASDAQ down 12%. So Trump announced in a social post, in the Truth Social post on Saturday, that 8 NATO members, U.S. imports will face escalating tariffs until such time as a deal is reached for the complete and total purchase of Greenland. He says that the tariffs will start at 10% and rise to 25% sometime in June. Sounds like strong arming to me. Maybe just me. Well, here's some news from the Associated Press about ICE. As you know, they're rounding up people in democratically controlled states, according to the Associated Press News, or apnews.com. A ballooning immigration and customs enforcement budget, hiring bonuses of $50,000, swelling ranks of ICE officers to 22,000 in an expanding national force bigger than most police departments in America. President Donald Trump promised the largest mass deportation operation in U.S. history, but achieving his goal wouldn't have been possible without funding from the big tax and spending cuts bill passed by Republicans in Congress, and it's fueling unprecedented immigration enforcement actions in cities like Minneapolis and beyond. The GOP big bill is supercharging ICE, one budget expert said, in ways that Americans may not fully realize and that have only just began. I just don't think people have a sense of scale, said Bobby Kogan, Senior Director of Federal Budget Policy at the Center for American Progress and former advisor to the Biden administration's Office of Management and Budget, quote, close quote. Well, how would the public be privy to inside information? No, the public doesn't have an idea what's going on, but what the public does know, they know that something is wrong. They see it, they feel it, they witness it, and it is unprecedented that this nation is spiraling out of control. And that is a stipulated fact. I know there are some people who are war hawks and they want war at any cost. They don't care because war makes money. And it's okay for police brutality to run rampant throughout America as long as it's not happening to you or to your friends or your family or your cities or your towns or your associates. So what would happen is all of a sudden that ICE was turned loose in all of the states of America, not just a proportionately selected few states. Then the red states would have a different perspective entirely because it's targeting your city. It's targeting your neighborhoods. It's targeting your friends and your associates. Meanwhile, the economy is tanking speeder than a fasting bullet, quote, close quote, like Superman. And we are living in a day and age when individuals are facing so many things. Tyrone Bowman Live. Take a quick break. Be right back. All right, I'm back, ladies and gentlemen. I want to finish talking about this article from the Associated Press. President Donald Trump promised, as I said, the largest mass deportation operation in U.S. history. What about the economy? What about gas prices, food prices? What about the housing market, foreclosures on properties? What about unemployment and people losing their jobs? I read an article a few days ago that luring people to become ICE officers with a promise of $50,000. But what they weren't told is that they have to sign a 5-year contract. They get a $10,000 signing bonus right up front. But if they don't complete the entire 5 years with all the strings attached, then they have to pay the $10,000 back, etc. Sometimes people are so greedy for money until they just don't read the fine print in the applications or in the contracts. Always read the fine print because the devil is in the details. When you don't read the fine print and you sign on to something, it is adversely going to affect you and your family in many ways that people probably never dreamed of. So, and you can fight the do nothing congressional Congress and the Senate for what's happening in this country. As we get ready to come into the midterm elections, they're going to try to make it seem like everything is wonderful in America and they're just a few people who don't like law and order. They can't stand to see progress and prosperity flow in America. They're going to try to paint a picturesque view of how rosy America is. Meanwhile, homelessness, lack, want, disparity, joblessness, it's all up. For the wealthy and the privileged, they don't know where the food banks are, but I do. They don't know where the homeless people live. I see them every single day. They don't understand the struggles that everyday single mothers go through just to put food on their tables to take care of their families. They don't understand the heartache, heartbreak, and pain that a mother has when she has to go into a separate room and cry silently so her children don't see her crying. Do you know what it's like to go to a grocery store and then you can't even get the things that you really want? I see people with their cards, with the EBT cards, and many times they have to put a whole lot of stuff back because they can't afford it. They would like to get it, and then some people have abused it. One thing about me, I will tell it just the way it is. Those who need SNAP benefits, they should get them. But I've also seen people abuse it. Use it for purposes that it was never intended for. And then when they get caught, they get mad and they get upset. Well, you knew when you signed that SNAP benefit application what the stipulations were before you agreed to get them. The food is supposed to be for the children. I said the food is supposed to be for the children. Many times the parents go to the store and end up getting any and everything that they want and get nothing for their children. But they got everything for themselves and for the man, and the vice versa for the women, but bring nothing home for the kids. The purpose of the supplemental nutrition program is so that families don't go hungry, and that children especially don't go hungry. There must be responsibility, there must be correctness, and there has to be accountability. Individuals are going to get involved in these programs. So as a Republican president marks the first year of his second term, the immigration enforcement and removal operation that has been a cornerstone of his domestic and foreign policy agenda is rapidly transforming into something else, a national law enforcement presence with billions upon billions of dollars in new spending from U.S. taxpayers. The shooting death of Renee Good, which the Republicans don't care about. As a matter of fact, they're happy. Yeah, they're happy that she's dead. They're happy. They're celebrating. They're happy about it behind closed doors. They're happy that the officer in question is now, quote unquote, a billionaire from GoFundMe because people decided, oh, well, he deserves a hero's reward for killing Renee Good. Not a tear has been shed for her from the Republicans. Not an ounce of remorse, not an ounce of empathy or sympathy toward her family. Like she never existed, like her life was tantamount to nothing. And this is the paradoxical thing that we're dealing with here. Right is wrong, and then wrong is right. And there will be a day of accountability. The Republicans are not always going to be in power. And then when the day of accountability comes, they're going to say, just like the people said in Hitler's day, we were only following orders. We were just doing our job. We were just doing as we were told. And I'm going to tell you something that's sad, but it's going to be true. They're going to start killing children. And when they do, there's going to be an outcry when no justice takes place. Because these people are out of control. And when little children are getting killed, and nobody seems to care, and people sit back and laugh about it and think it's a joke, or somebody's grandmother or grandfather gets killed, then what? What are you going to say? You're only doing your job? You pricked your fingernail said, oh, my fingernail got pricked. I'm more important than them. So now the military-style officers are seen going door to door and detain immigrants. I saw one of the people who work with ICE. He was dressed in a Nazi uniform. A Nazi uniform walking down the street with his thug bodyguard. In full Nazi regalia. What is that sending as a message? This is not about enforcement. He's basically saying we're Nazis and we can say and do whatever we want. Okay? Those who do not remember the past are condemned to repeat it. So Trump revived threats to invoke the Insurrection Act to quell the demonstrations, and the U.S. Army has 1,500 soldiers ready to deploy. But Trump's own public approval rating on immigration, one of his signature issues, has slipped since he took office, according to an AP NORC poll. Public sentiment is everything, said Representative Nadia M. Marquez, a Democrat from New York, at a press conference at the Capitol with lawmakers supporting legislation to impeach Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. It's not going to happen. She's not going to be impeached. So y'all can save your breath. You don't have the votes. You don't have the consensus. You don't control anything. Let's talk about the outbreak of measles. After a year marked by measles outbreaks across the U.S., is the virus now an epidemic? A year after the start of a deadly measles outbreak in West Texas, the virus continues to spread in several parts of the U.S. A milestone both troubling and significant, as it could mean that measles is no longer considered eliminated in the country. Measles has been eliminated in the U.S. since 2000, a designation that indicates the virus is no longer constantly circulating, though there are occasional outbreaks. However, global public health authorities consider the virus epidemic always present after 1 year of continuous transmission. Oops, lost my feed. Let's get it back up. We have all the ingredients to have our elimination status revoked, said Mary Albert Rosis, a professor of global health and epidemiology at George Mason University. In previous times, it would be unheard of those to lose your elimination status unless it was a war-torn, collapsing country, she added. The U.S. saw more measles cases in 2025 than in any year since 1991. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention recorded 49 outbreaks, and 2,242 cases last year. Another 171 cases have been confirmed this month, though the actual tally is likely much higher since the CDC's data lags behind that of state health departments. Listen, you never know what people are running into. People should stop taking things lightly and stop believing all the propaganda that they're exposed to. Because I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to go back to the SNAP benefits for me. In my neighborhood where I live, it's a cacophony. It's a mixture of races from all walks of life. And I'm here to tell you, they are all hurting. I said they're all hurting. This is not a game. No, this is not a game. This is not a joke. So protect yourselves. All right, ex-NBA star Lamar Odom has been arrested on suspicion of DUI in Nevada. Former NBA star, according to, who's this reporting this? According to ESPN Sports. Former NBA star Lamar Odom was arrested on suspicion of DUI in Las Vegas over the weekend, authorities said Tuesday. Odom, who is 46, was pulled over Saturday on Interstate 15 near Harry Reid International Airport, according to Nevada Highway Patrol Trooper Sean Hagstrom. He could face charges including DUI, excessive speed, and failure to properly maintain a travel lane. Hagstrom said he's not going to jail. It's not going to happen. I'm not going to even read any more of that article because Lamar Odom is not going to go to prison. A U.S. citizen says ICE took him at gunpoint in only his underwear despite frigid cold, and they did not have a warrant. They don't need a warrant, y'all. When are y'all going to understand that they do not follow the same laws and rules and regulations as everyday people? They're not going to come with a warrant. They're not going to knock on your door politely. They are just going to do what they're assigned to do. And then some. According to APnews.com, federal immigration agents bashed open a door and detained a U.S. citizen in his Minnesota home at gunpoint without a warrant, then led him out into the streets in his underwear in sub-freezing conditions, according to his family and videos reviewed by the Associated Press. Charlie L. Scott Thiel told the AP that his daughter-in-law alerted him on Sunday afternoon that U.S. immigration, I'm just going to say ICE agents, were banging at the door of his residence in St. Paul. He told her not to open it. Masked agents then forced their way in and pointed guns at the family, yelling at them. Thiel recalled, I was shaking. He said they didn't show any warrant. They just broke the door down. Now, see, some of y'all like that kind of stuff. Some of you MAGA folk, y'all like this because you think it's fun until it happens to you. You think it should happen to everybody except y'all. But when it starts happening to y'all and to your friends and to your wife and your children, and you are traumatized and they are traumatized, then you're going to have a different perspective as to how to handle things. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Tyrone Bowman Live. I have to take a legal break. I'll be right back. All right, thank you, everybody. Somebody says it can't happen to me. I'm white. See, that's the problem with some of you stupid jackasses. I'll just tell you very plainly, some of y'all some stupid a-holes. You think because you're white, you have a white privilege card, and you think that only people who are not white are going to be terrorized in this country and in this nation? You are so stupid. That's the problem with a lot of y'all. Because you think that the Trump administration is going to be in power forever, and they're not. And you think nothing can go wrong in your lily white world, in your lily white neighborhood, and you're totally wrong. I don't care about your whiteness. I care about humanity. That's what I care about. I care about doing what's right for the sake of doing what's right. That's the problem that happened with slavery. Certain white people felt as though they had a God-given divine right to usurp authority over Africans and turn them into their personal property and slaves. My people were not property. They were not things. I don't give a damn what you think. And that's the problem with America today. A certain element of America, a certain aspect of America, still think we're back in the 12 and the 1400s. And which y'all don't know, we're not going back. It's not going to happen. You can bring slavery back, but I guarantee you, my people will not be slaves. I'm talking about this story about a man who the ICE agents came into his house, tore the door down, terrorized him and his family, dragged him out in the cold in his drawers. And as it goes, amid a massive surge of federal agents into the Twin Cities, immigration authorities are facing backlash from residents and the local leaders for warrantless arrests, aggressive clashes with protests, and the fatal shooting of a mother of three, Renee Good. Well, I'm going to conclude this particular article by saying this. The only way things are going to change in this nation, people are going to have to make them change. And the one thing that those in power fear is losing power. Because they don't want people united. They don't want them to vote. They don't want them to come out en masse. Protesting is one thing. Getting out there in the polls, to the polls rather than voting, is another. So that's the question. What are you going to do? All right, here's some other stories that I've been tracking. Let me see if I can find them, first of all. For those of you that are hanging in here with me, appreciate it. Well, California Governor Gavin Newsom, they're launching an investigation into child sexual images on Elon Musk's AI site. You know, I'm here to tell you, all these sites say they have strict guidelines that they operate by. Well, why is it that all the filth and trash and perversion they permit on these websites? But then when you or I make a comment, then they'll say, well, that goes against our community guidelines. Really? What about all the nudity and the filth and the perverted images that you allow on your platforms? Does that go against your community guidelines? What hypocrisy. According to CBS News, Mexico sends 37 cartel figures to U.S. amid growing pressure from the Trump administration. Mexico's security minister said Tuesday that it had sent another 37 members of Mexican drug cartels to the United States as the Trump administration rises up pressure on governments to crack down on criminal networks it says are smuggling drugs across the border. Mexican Secretary Minister Omar Garcia Harfuch wrote in a social media post on X that the people transferred were high-impact criminals that represented a real threat to the country's security. Well, why are they coming here? Don't they have prisons in Mexico. Why are they sending them to America? I, I don't understand that. Why are they coming here? It is the third time in less than 1 year that Mexico has sent detained cartel members to the U.S. as the country attempts to offset mounting threats by U.S. President Donald Trump. Garcia, a Hartfuss, said the government has sent 92 people in total. I'm just giving you headlines and short commentary. That's all I'm doing. I don't want to go into in-depth of these stories. With these stories, rather. All right, let's see. According to USA Today, John Harbaugh has a new office, and it came with an endorsement from President Donald Trump. The New York Giants officially endorsed their new head coach at a press conference, kicking off a new era for the team. Harbaugh, who has spent 18 seasons with the Baltimore Ravens, was clearly excited and attempted and amped up the opportunity when meeting the New York media for the first time. Isn't it ironic how these old white men can always go and get a job someplace in any sports venue? Isn't it ironic? You get fired from one job, you just get hired to another. But when black coaches get fired, black players get fired, they just can't go and get a job someplace else. Because it's a boys' club, that's why. It's an all boys white privilege club that few have access to. He said it feels great to have the presidential endorsement. He also noticed that the post that he said, John, take the job. So I thought John Mara might have had something to do with that. So they decided to hire him as the Giants' new coach. Whatever, blah, blah, yada, yada. Who cares? Another white guy gets the job. Nothing new there. Nothing to see people. Oh, boy. I'm not going to keep talking about Minneapolis. There are other things that concern me here. Well, Wells Fargo has decided, check this out from Fox Business. Wells Fargo confirmed to Fox News Digital that it is moving its wealth management headquarters to West Palm Beach, Florida, underscoring a growing exodus of money and corporate influence from traditional financial hubs to low-tax, business-friendly states. At the end of the day, it's all about the money. Listen and listen well. All the protesting, all the hollering, all the screaming, all the yelling means nothing if you don't have access to capital to put an end to it. I've told you all before, you know what hurts people? Their wallets, their financial portfolios, their stocks, their bonds, their shareholders' dividends. That's what hurts America. People say, oh, they believe in Jesus Christ. No, America's God is money. The God of money is what rules this nation. You can invoke Jesus all you want. Jesus is not in control of this nation. Because if he were, it wouldn't be chaotically out of control. Because he would put an end to it. The God of America is green, the dollar bill. Money, gold, diamonds, silver. I don't know about silver. Emeralds, sapphire, rubies, onyx, carbuncle, etc. That's what rules America, not what people think rules America. You can be as religious as you want in this nation and broke and don't have a voice when it comes to anything. So they decided to move to Florida. The relocation makes Wells Fargo the first major U.S. bank to base its wealth management operations in the Sunshine State rather. Wells Fargo Wealth and Investment Management is advancing its strategic, always use that word, strategic commitment to serving high and ultra high net worth clients by increasing its presence. In other words, we don't give a damn about the poor. We're only concerned about the rich, the wealthy, and the powerful. That's what high and ultra high net worth clients mean. The rich, the powerful, and the wealthy. The rest of y'all don't matter, according to them. That's basically what they're telling you. But it is the depository of everyday people that Wells Fargo has a huge wealth management portfolio. Drinking some herbal tea. And if people withdrew their monies from these institutions, then what? They wouldn't have so much power, would they? When was the last time you went to your local bank where you've been banking for years and you asked them for a loan? And you know what they tell you? They look at you like you're crazy. Enough of that. The economy is going to get worse before it gets better. According to Complex News, Dr. Bernice King, in an appearance on the Next Chapter podcast, the youngest daughter of the late Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., explained why she felt compelled to contact OpenAI. In the interview on the Next Chapter podcast, I think that's with Bishop T.D. Jakes, Martin Luther King Jr. and Coretta Scott King's youngest child, Dr. Bernice King, broke down how she was able to get OpenAI to stop users from generating images of her late father. I just had a situation with OpenAI. My father's image was misused, she explained, as seen in the clip above. I don't have the clip. And OpenAI didn't necessarily do it, but they didn't also think about the guardrails that were needed in advance. So when me and John Hope Bryant were talking about this, I said, hey, this Sam Altman, let's just reach out. People on social media wanted me to speak out. And in that instance, I needed to use my influence inside, which I did. And it made a tremendous difference and helped set the stage for other historic figures. And that's how they're being used. So since the proliferation of generative AI models such as Sora, ChatGPT, people have used them to generate outrageous images of historical figures, rightfully so. King felt the need to protect the image of her father, one of the most famous civil rights icons in modern history. He's more than an icon. Dr. King will not be relegated and pushed to the status of an icon. An icon is a symbol. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was not a symbol. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think that's enough of the news headlines I'm going to do for today. There are many more I could talk about, but for the sake of time for right now, I'm going to take a long break and I'll be back because there's some other things I really do need to address and talk about. No, bankers are not your friends, and I wouldn't expect them to be my friend. I don't trust banks anyway, and I definitely don't trust bankers. I don't trust nothing about them. They lie, cheat, steal, break all type of security laws to protect the rich and the powerful. Meanwhile, everyday assets for everyday people, they go undeterred. Never surrender, never quit.